Hi, everyone. Welcome to our logistics and AI data layer webinar today. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We very much hope you're able to get quite a bit out of this, and how the shifting AI landscape will be impacting your business as it relates to logistics and supply chain, as well as the way you're structuring data. So my name is William Hauth. For those of you who don't know me, I've been working with VistaVu via acquisition for about 14 years. I have an extensive background in SAP systems, both SAP Business One and SAP S4HANA Public Cloud, also known as Cloud ERP now. So I'm mainly, my experience has been in the wholesale distribution and manufacturing areas. So I'll be able to speak rather proficiently to some of the issues that your businesses are currently facing, and how SAP is actively looking to solve those issues. We're going to put a large emphasis on really data and how to structure data, how these systems that are now being brought onto the market, these true cloud solutions being brought to the market by SAP, are better positioning businesses to structure their data and consolidating it, and how you can start to leverage these systems and start to leverage these practices to do the same within your businesses, and position yourself for future growth in using these new AI tool sets. Okay. So today we've structured this session in about six areas. However, we will expand past these areas through the slides. There's quite a bit of new information that's constantly coming from the SAP ecosystem, especially in the last year and a half to 2 years, with the real voluminous introduction of these AI tool sets. SAP is constantly making changes, constantly repositioning themselves to better leverage these tool sets and provide you with software that will help you grow your organizations, and as well as streamline processes and capture consolidated processes. So today we'll be reviewing the data problem holistically that's impacting really every business, not only every business, but every person at this point. S4 logistics overview, just in general, S4, aka Cloud ERP, how it operates, what's available as far as logistics and supply chain within the solution. Will then be specifically isolated on inventory and materials management, warehouse management, and EWM. So those are two different things in the S4 system. Advanced available to promise, and MRP. So when structuring this webinar today, I was very direct in selecting some of these areas because I've seen, especially with available to promise, MRP, and warehouse management, I've seen these as highly complex areas of systems, or specifically SAP ERP systems in the past, that most customers in some form or fashion have needed to modify, or acquire an add-on, or look outside of what is available within the core of their ERP to kind of bridge the gaps that they've had in their system, or enhance their systems in some way, shape, or form. Okay. So to be very specific in what we're going to be discussing today, we're going to be looking at application foundations, how they route into creating trusted data, and how they bring proper AI outcomes to the table, right? I think what everyone is seeing is this mass shift in the way that we're now starting to use these AI applications. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I would say about 2 years ago, I started tinkering around with some of the newly introduced LLMs, AI applications that have come onto the market, ChatGPT, Copilot, SAP has Joule, which we will speak about. When I first started working with these tools, it was one-off thing. Hey, this is really cool. I wonder what this could become. I now find myself from the second I sit at my desk till the second I get up and thereafter using these applications, whether it's the new app on my phone that I'm using in place of maybe Google, or it is Gemini through Google that you're using, or you're using ChatGPT. We use it for PowerPoint generation. We use it for SOW write-up. We use it for training materials. We use it, and there are so many use cases for these tools that we will just see grow and grow and grow over the next, 10 some odd years. That it's at this point, it's almost infinite, right? It's overwhelming, and the rate at which the use is being adopted is overwhelming, right? So I think I'm sure you're all seeing this in your businesses as well. The major flaw that this starts to bring to the table is, and that it's been exposing, is how disjointed systems of the past are, right? Of the past are. So that comes into, our tile number one here, which is application foundation. How can we most appropriately structure and situate our business to have proper application foundation that will ultimately route into these AI tool sets so we can most efficiently and effectively use our data. And I say our data or your data, meaning, there's one thing going and looking to the web and seeing the collective culmination or average of, billions of pieces of data, but do those billions of pieces of data always directly impact how you are operating today? What you want to do is position yourself, through time to where you have a knowledgeable AI tool set that is aware of how your processes are flowing, how your data is stored, the locations it's stored in, and the context between that data and how those pieces of data connect. So you get the most accurate result set in any use case of these AI applications. So, just to look at, right, many people look at the ERP, the S4 ERP system, and they say, okay, well, this is a really large system. This is a very deep system. And I think it's very important when we discuss S4 public cloud to not look at it just as a deep system. We look at it as a consolidated system, right? The level of depth is there, so you can essentially structure your business within fit to standard processes, all within your single ERP, and grow within it. So it puts you in a position where you are now limiting your the requirement for you to go outside of that ERP to start to build, external customizations, use external pieces of software that are unintegrated to the platform, to have external data repositories for storage that are unintegrated to the platform, right? Because when you have those fractioned, repositories and pieces of software, they're all singular, they're all separate silos that AI toolset will not be able to access, right? So when you look at the S4 product as, hey, it might be too large for my business, it's not the case of the product being too large. It's the case of the product was built in that way to allow your business to expand within the product versus expand outside of the product, right? So what that all comes into is when you have these consolidated data sets and you have standardized processes, it allows you to create trusted data, right? You do not have fragmented systems with uncontextualized data. So your AI tool sets that you're using, your agents, your chatbots, they're coming from a properly structured base, right? And in addition to that, for the ERP standardization, right, the process standardizations, you'll hear fit to standard quite frequently, right, with the S4 product. You will find that many businesses alike are using similar, if not the same, processes that you are now using. So you're starting to eliminate some of this uniqueness, which again just allows for significant efficiencies. Part of SAP's strategy, and this goes outside of this slide, so I told everyone we might deviate from the slides at some point. Part of SAP's strategy is also to start, they've begun to develop their business suite, right? So their business suite is, again, in attempt to now bring what used to be external applications, right, external to the SAP suite, into a singular suite that natively integrates with the ERP core. So now when you're looking at a product like SuccessFactors or Concur, those products through BTP, which is the Business Technology Platform, they have direct native integrations into your ERP core, which means you have accessible, contextualized data that sits alongside your ERP within the SAP suite that your SAP AI toolsets have direct access to and understanding of, right? So before we go into the next slide, I also wanted to just bring up Joule. So I referenced Joule earlier. So Joule is one of SAP's foundational AI tools. So if you think about Joule in the most basic form, what it is it's their their LLM or their chatbot that exists as a base application within the ERP itself. So, many people today are using Copilot within their organization, or you're using independently ChatGPT. Joule sits within the SAP ERP system. So generally what we do as an organization is we're looking at Joule deployments, which Joule does come, as a base package with the SAP S4 public cloud product. What we're doing is we're looking at it in the eyes of crawl, walk, run. So what we're doing through our projects is we're beginning to deploy Joule Base, and we're advising our customer base on using Joule Base for navigational purposes, training purposes, context sensitive help that you might have looked at and used in your past within the ERP systems. But you can set it up as an internal coach through documentation within your product. You also have the next layer of it, which would be Joule Premium. Joule Premium allows for more advanced analytics and capabilities. It also allows for agent generation, right? Vast automations within your system. It allows for agentic orchestration, so having a multitude of agents defined that are able to execute and work with each other. You have many people. I think one of the first ERP applications that I really started to see in volume was CIM, which is Central Invoice Management, as SAP calls it. What it really is if anyone's heard the term OCR, which is ocular recognition, it's SAP looking through the inbox for AP invoices, and it's checking these invoices to import them directly into the system and then reconciling to the inbox, right? So when this first is enabled in the system, you do need some form of human interaction where they're checking and they're saying, yes, this looks good, this invoice is correct, this invoice has an issue. As those invoices are adjusted with time, the system is learning. And with time, you're then getting to a position where you're now able to have these AP invoices just automatically imported into your system with very, very infrequent touch points. This is one of the largest use cases that I saw that was almost immediate when some of these AI products started to come onto the market as it related to SAP. So I just wanted to bring up Joule just to give some context to it. You'll hear much more about it if anyone's attending any of the SAP events in the near future. You will absolutely hear the name Joule at those SAP events. So the data problem. So, as we kind of discussed a moment ago, the largest issue for AI that we see kind of just plaguing, the general business landscape and really all landscapes, whether it's business or personal, is that we have unconsolidated data or unconnected data, right? And as well as uncleansed data. We tend as humans to kind of work in an unstructured way naturally, whether it's a system that allows us to do so, right? in phase one of ERP, I'll say, which was many companies went through their first ERP implementation. They might have been coming off of, some form of DOS system that was allowing them to go negative, or they were coming off of spreadsheets that had zero structure to them. So they had a form of data cleansing. Now you're seeing, companies, they're on their first ERP. They have their data is a little more refined, but they've started to accumulate all these various repositories. So now you have a data that's a little cleaner, but you have years of it. You have old data that needs to be purged. You have repositories set up that have no connection to your current ERP system. All of that plays into having a well-structured data. So I'm going to give you a few examples here of what we're seeing really across the board. Many companies have data living in a multitude of repositories, right? The ERP we look at as almost our singular data repository, but that's not the case. We have documentation in PDFs and Word docs and Excel spreadsheets, probably saved on an internal local network or an internal drive. You may be using SharePoint, so now you have more documentation saved on SharePoint. You might have project management software, and you have documentation saved within that project management software. You have your email, so now you have Outlook, and there's an extremely vast amount of information that's exchanged through Outlook. You might be running Teams, or you might have Slack, or you might use Zoom, right, for meeting recording. All of this is relevant business data that SAP, through their business suite and through Cloud ERP, they are looking to create a singular connected repository for. So whether it's integrations to SharePoint, which are natively offered, it's integrations to Outlook, it's integrations to Teams, it's integrations to your external pieces of software, which the ones that exist within the SAP suite are native integrations. They're essentially plug and play with some minor editing. You don't need third-party connectors, and you don't have to jump through hoops to get these integrations completed. So, a lot of that and managing that data and starting to pull it back into kind of a collective brain is what SAP is looking to do, as they're moving through this kind of AI progression. And I think, anyone who's used these tools really effectively, you can see the impact it has on your output. If you go into Copilot and you ask it a question about an engagement that you've been working on for, let's say, 6 months, and it has no context of the engagement that you've been going through other than the question you're asking, your response is going to be vastly different than if you had been entering assets into that chat for 6 months. When you enter those assets in and you provide that context and that data, the output you get is 20 times better and 20 times more, if not 100 times more useful. So you need to start really looking at your business as such. Because when the time comes and you start deploying agents and having orchestrated agents, if you don't have accurate data and it doesn't have access to these repositories, it's going to be very difficult to start to deploy these things. So I think the mid market, I believe, has the toughest challenge, and the reason I say that is because the mid market has always had to get crafty, right? So oftentimes, you're up against time constraints, schedule constraints, budget constraints, resource constraints. So you're constantly looking for a quick solution that fits your business, or you're working with a large enterprise or a large customer or vendor who's driving an internal decision because, they're the big player, they're the heavy hitter, and you need to adjust your business to what they're doing. And what that often does is it drives us to modifications, or it drives you to an external piece of software, or it drives you to an intermediary solution that maybe you only wanted to use for a few weeks, but guess what? Now it sticks, and 6 years later, you're still using that external solution, or it drives you to a spreadsheet. So, those are the areas that we're really starting to look to try to avoid and consolidate that data and consolidate those processes into true standards to increase the ability of, our ability to access cleanly structured data. So now we're going to start to jump into our logistics overview. So SAP S4 Public Cloud is, as I stated earlier, a very deep product. So to put it in perspective, I think we have, we probably have a few SAP Business One customers in the room. We probably have some SAP by Design customers in the room. We might have some public cloud customers in the room already. Core processes in SAP Business One are about 50. So the system itself comes with about 50 standard or fit to standard processes, I'll say natively within that product. It is one of SAP's most heavily modified product. There are 83,000 customers currently using that product. I would say 85 to 90% of those customers have the product modified in some capacity. I've been working with it for a very long time. If they don't have it directly modified in some capacity, it's modified via user-defined value. It's modified via user-defined tables or user-defined fields. There's an add-on running within it. This creates significant variables across those system bases. Just to put this in perspective, I took a customer live last week. They went from Business One to SAP S4 Public Cloud. The only modification that was required, they were running our Resolve WMS systems. The only modification that was required were forms and reports adjustments. So much of the native functionality that existed in those systems that we had to modify, it now exists natively in S4. So to put in perspective, Business One is about 50 processes. By Design has about 75 processes. SAP Public Cloud has about 700 plus processes natively, which are actively being added to. So there's major system upgrades every February and August of each year. And then there's also hot fixes and patch rollouts, even more often than that. So what I wanted to discuss, though, as it relates to logistics, is just our general areas of logistics and how they relate back to, S4. So when we think logistics, we think plan, we think source and procure, we think produce, we think store, we think deliver, and we think analyze, right? So we're looking at our internal demand signals, which are generally demand could be sales, purchasing, production, depending on how your business operates. We're looking at availability and ATP, so availability to promise, which is often a complex report or a complex task in itself, depending on how you're leveraging the system, right? You have a lot that plays into the ATP criteria as far as demand documents, current inventory, customer priorities, product shortages, everyone who just went through, COVID, just supply, major supply chain issues as far as delivery delays. And then you have backorder processing, right? How do I want to handle my back orders? Do I want to prioritize them by customer? Do I have sufficient inventory in stock? Do I want to do a partial delivery? Do I want to hold for a purchase order that I have incoming tomorrow? Or do I plan to allocate that purchase order inventory elsewhere, right? Do I have a reservation? We have, inventory and materials, warehouse execution, which we are going to dive deeper into a bit later. Deliveries, which are inbound, outbound. So, inventory exiting your facilities, inventory coming in. And then we have transport and settlement, which in S4 would be your freight charges and your transportation costs. So all of this functionality is included natively within the product. You'll see that there's a significant amount more depth of what's available in comparison to some of the SAP ERP systems of the past. And then in addition to that, the way SAP is now focused on their cloud suite, you'll see that there are a significant amount of new products and new enhancements that are constantly rolling into this ERP, whether it's monthly, weekly, or yearly within those two major rollouts in February and August. So Go to the next slide here. Second. So public cloud is a very strong fit in the mid-market, mainly because we see, a lot of growth in mid-market. It's a very extensible system. And when I say extensible, I do not mean in the terms of directly modifying the core system, right? Because we want to keep that rigidity and that data integrity within the core system. So that's why, we do preach fit to standard, right? So within the core system, you want to leave that core system untouched because it now creates an industry standard within SAP's product base. What we have in place is what's called side-by-side extensibility. So through the BTP platform, you have modifications that are essentially managed within the BTP product itself, right? So these are low-code, no-code development tool sets. This is your integration suite that, again, I spoke to the elimination in many instances of needing that middleware. So SAP does have an integration suite with the subscription that allows for an exorbitant amount. I don't believe there's actually a limit to the amount of integrations that you can process through that integration suite. It's just volume metric. So it's volume based on the amount of transactions that are coming through. And that's how, pricing fluctuates on it. But, it really looks to silo those items in a way because you still have your contextualization and your integrated modifications, but you have your core product that stays within the standard and can be updated and supported within that standard, right? So next we'll speak to inventory and materials management. So you'll see here, right, as ERP exists, much of this functionality you guys are well accustomed to. How do I define inventory locations? So in S4, what you might be looking at is what they coin storage locations versus bin locations. So a storage location could be something just like an area of your floor that you have, taped off as like a non-bin coded bin location. You have a tag on the wall and you scan into that location. A bin location, as you know, is just a standard location. And then, as you're progressing through your warehouse or your pick and pack, staging items for packaging and kind of shipping out of the warehouse. You're capturing all that data through and through with scanning enablement. Again, the reason this is all so important is because having, structured proper data in a standardized set within the core of your ERP versus an add-on or a customization allows for greater access to your AI tool set in a knowledgeable way, right? So you can have, intelligent analysis. You can have predictive analytics as it relates to ATP, as it relates to your MRP systems, which I'm going to cruise through some of this so we get down to MRP and ATP before time starts to run out. So we have inventory control, operational and financial. So of course, inventory is the core of our supply chain. Much of what we're executing for our supply chain is around inventory constraints or inventory abundance. We're trying to limit, the amount of inventory we hold, and due to holding costs of that inventory, we want to bring in, more inventory for high volume items that are quickly moving. We need to make sure, if you're a make to stock or a make to order organization, if you're make to order, that you have, the right amounts of inventory there for the order volume that you're projecting out. Maybe you're running it on seasonality. Maybe you're running it based on, period discounting. You're expecting an influx of that item, right? So, everything kind of revolves around your inventory, whether it's you're a make to order organization, you're a make to stock organization, you have physical constraints in your warehouse, right? So that's why inventory is so important. And that's why we want a system that's able to leverage the data that we have structured systems to start making informed decisions for us, right? That is AI, and that is what we will be working with, and that is where we're seeing the landscape start to shift. And I think everyone's seeing that in, their everyday life, right? We're now expediting output. We're having AI make, craft 75% of something for us, and we're now putting in the 25% instead of, where we were just 3-4 years ago, where we had to put in 100% of the effort, right? So you're focused on higher value, more complex items, which is what you want to be doing, because that allows you to move quicker. So again, inventory discipline changes, right? So we have, as far as well-structured inventory that allows you to process and flow through your operations, this impacts every area of the business: your planners, your financial resources, customer service, and your warehouse. And then, most importantly, the two areas that I really want to touch on is your available to promise, and then your MRP. So in speaking to warehouse management a bit, you'll see here we have warehouse management and EWM. So SAP S4 Public Cloud is actually broken into, I'll say, 3 areas for inventory and warehouse management. They have IM, which is native core product. You have WM, which again is native core product, and you have EWM. EWM is extended warehouse management. So extended warehouse management is an extended WM product that comes with that needs to be purchased alongside, premium public cloud, but it has a native integration. So this is a very deep WM product that allows for significant, I'll say significant variables to be set within the product itself, manipulations and how you operate through your warehouse, that sort of thing. So, however, it's via configuration, right? It's not via modification. This is a product that is just structured to fluctuate with your business as required. So, it's just a very robust tool set. So embedded warehouse management, so EWM, or extended warehouse management. This is actually a spelling error on my part. So extended warehouse management, it allows for bin level visibility, just end-to-end process tracking and processing, handling units and storage control. This is a large one that in many of the WMS systems in the past, you might have had a license plate. So handling units are license plates. You might have had the ability to leverage license plates in some capacity, but there was a lot left to be desired as far as breaking license plate down, moving partial license plates, recompiling license plates, things of that nature. So this is a large step up in your handling units. That SAP refers to, right? They're interchangeable. You have full batch management, full serial management capabilities, wave picking in EWM, and then also again, it's structured to work with these agentic AI tools, these automation tools with BTP, right? So WM, it has the vast majority of kind of your standard processes. Where you really are looking at EWM is for, advanced put away processes, pick strategies, advanced packing and unpacking processes, like I said, HU or license plate usage, breaking them apart. So it's really a much deeper WM system. So, some customers might have a requirement for this. Some customers will be on either just inventory management, depending if you need scanning capabilities or not, or just WM. So again, this has most of what we see in a system that has either just core SAP, so just Business One, or by design with an add-on. So many people on this call might be using our Resolve WMS add-on. The majority of the Resolve WMS add-on exists within the core product of WM within public cloud. By design has actually even less WM capabilities, right? So it's a bit of a struggle for many of the by design customers to even get to the point where they have proper scanning capabilities within the product. So again, most of that is covered within the standard WM process. And if you do exist outside of that WM, that's where EWM would come in for use. So available to promise. So this is one where I think we're really starting to see a step up from the ERPs of past. I think almost every customer I've ever worked with that has either looked to use available to promise or looked to use MRP has had some form of distaste for how their current system runs their MRP or their ATP reports. And the reason for that is because there's such a high level of variables in these reporting tools that you see many customers, they struggle with the definition of the logic sets as the current ERP they're using has set them, right? They have one unique item that falls outside of that, or they feel that the ATP report or the MRP system does not fully project out what they're looking for, or it has no access to their historical usage, or it has no access to run based on seasonality, right? It can't see their customer prioritization. So that's where we're really starting to see SAP take a step up with available to promise and MRP as well. And I only see these areas of your system growing for supply chain. And the reason I feel they're so important is because, again, right, you're looking right now at just the ERP and your data, but you have all of this other data floating outside of your system as far as, supply chain reality. So when you're starting to use these agentic tools, when you have cleanly structured data in your system, then what you get to do is the next step is start to say, okay, I know I have clean, accurate data, right? As far as my sales, my purchasing data, I have my, I might be using forecasts, my historical usage, I have, seasonalities, my seasonality ebb and flows for my sales volume. I have my customer priorities set. I can see who's ordering in volume. I can see what my profitability is by customer, right? So these are the customers I really want to take care of. I've gone through vendor scoring, right? So I know who my stable vendors are. I know who delivers on time. I know who I can trust. Then I can say, well, now what's happening in the market, right? And I think this is where we're really heading. What's happening in the market? What disruption is becoming of the market? Am I going to have issue getting raw steel from various areas of the country? How are the tariffs impacting my business, right? What's the country of origin on the products I'm selling? And am I now going to see, a multi-week to multi-month delays on this? And how can I now pivot to something that's been manufactured domestically that will fulfill, my forecasted sales orders, right? So without having proper data structured in your system, you cannot get to that point. And that is exactly where I think every business wants to be, right? Can I get my system to start to make these decisions and recommendations in the most efficient and effective manner for me, to now where I'm just focused on 15% of the really critical thinking and how I want to make that decision, versus spending hours and days on the legwork to try to manually execute these processes or go through it in a spreadsheet, right? So that's what we're really starting to see, right? Product allocate. So just for direct examples, SAP has product allocation for control distribution, reserve stock. You have alternative-based confirmation. So you have the ability to define substitutes within your system to use as alternatives when the order cannot be met with the standard inventory. You have back order processing, which allows for mass processing of sales orders based on certain rule sets and criteria around your customers and who's priority, who's high, who's low priority. Supply protection. So supply protection is similar to order reservations, quarantining inventory based on your requirements. And then you have advanced business process scheduling, right? So more granular scheduling of items for kind of your order volume or your purchasing volume. And all of these are contained within applications within the system. So, who you have those applications distributed to and what your security looks like is all you have the ability to do that based on role setups within the system itself. I am going to skip this one for just due to timing. And I'm going to jump to MRP because I've seen, right, as I spoke to earlier, MRP has always been a challenge. MRP has been a challenge for many customers in many ways. I've worked with a significant amount of business owners, and some of you might be on this call who have spent months developing, right, their own internal form of MRP because the systems they've worked on, whether current or past, just outright haven't worked properly for them or in the way they want to work. So it could be that there's no area to properly structure the data they're looking for. The system isn't capturing, their usage properly. It's not leveraging the dates within their system the way that they're looking for, and they have no ability to manipulate that. Or one of the largest ones I've seen, especially with the client server infrastructure. So Business One is a client server infrastructure. By design is a true cloud infrastructure, and public cloud is a true cloud infrastructure. But specifically with client server infrastructure is the amount of resources it takes to process some of these advanced calculations for MRP systems has been too robust for the system itself to handle. So what we're seeing now is not only have they made significant, material changes to the way that these material resource planning recommendations are being processed, but they're able to run on higher speeds, and they've reduced the need for any type of overnight batching or off hours, execution of processes. It puts you in a better position where you don't need to start to craft, custom solutions just for data storage. I've seen, entire external databases crafted just to have an MRP solution that, is running effectively for a business. So it's really, they've kind of started to manipulate and focus on these MRP changes, right? Now that everything else is standardized in S4, right? SAP looks at it in the same way. Standardize what you know, and then focus on the large challenges. They've started to kind of create a more effective MRP product that executes with simulation, so you can start to run, what if scenarios. It's more focused on demand driven versus the requirements around manual forecast entry. You can, and I'll say customize lightly because you're customizing via configurations, right? So now you can start to craft how you want the system to view certain areas of your data, whether it's dates, volumes, customers, that sort of thing. And again, this is all done through kind of a suite of applications that you have access to. So you can parse this out and execute it, based on who is doing what at your business. So not everyone's going to have access to this. You're going to have a handful of your resources that are, working through these items in your MRP. Before we start to move to kind of a Q&A session, which Hristo, I think the last 15 minutes you had for Q&A, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I did just want to just speak to, kind of last slide here, how we look to prioritize data, what items we can execute in our current systems to get you into a position where now you're prepared for whether it be a new system migration, just cleaning up existing data, archiving historical data, which is a large one. And then once we're through this, we'll start to go into the Q&A, Hristo. But I think cleansing, your current data is rather straightforward, right? Look to what we have. You can, look for items. When was the last time I sent an order to my customer? When was the last time I made an update to this customer record? When was the last time I purchased product from this vendor? And you can start to look at your business from, the manner of who's in use and who's not. Who do I want to eliminate that I no longer work with? This is irrelevant data at this point. It's just cluttering my system. I think the larger discussion is now many people on this call have been on these systems for 20 years, right? So as you're now moving into this kind of AI space, it's what do I do with my historical data? So for a long time before the introduction of these products, we were advising archival, right? Just go archive your data, right? Eliminate what you don't need, keep 2 years for auditing purposes, and then archive it. But now we're starting to look at, well, if it's archived, do you really have direct access to it for, trend forecasting, for data modeling? No, you don't. That's the reality of it. You're kind of pulling that data off the shelf. So really, instead, what SAP has brought to the table is they have a product called Datasphere. So Datasphere is similar to a data lake, right? It's essentially a repository. But what you're able to do with this repository is you're able to pull in all of your historical data, whether it's a business one or a by design system, and you can structure this data in an appropriately manner to use SAC, which is SAP Analytics Cloud, the reporting tool on top of it. So now you have your structured historical data with a reporting tool on top of it that you can also cross leverage with your newly operating ERP, all within the SAP umbrella, right? So none of this has to sit externally. You don't need to, create an independent database. You don't have to fully archive and eliminate data, right? Because then that impacts your year over year, trend forecasting and analysis. You might want to look at 10-year historical trends, especially when it comes to right, customers or vendors. I mean, customers, I'm sure if any of us went back through and looked at our customer base, someone who we might think has been one of our high volume customers throughout time, we might have seen that they've dipped in the last 5 to 6 years, and we've had 2 or 3 customers start to surpass them. But that might not be known through the organization, and that's going to impact priority of those customers that you're working with, that you're seeing significant growth and you're seeing their spend increase. So really having that data properly structured, the historical data for access, is I think extremely critical to some of these migrations that we're looking through, and for the customers, looking to shift over to these new cloud products. So Christo, I will, we'll shift gears and we'll go into Q&A mode. I haven't seen a ton pop up in the chat.
No, I just checked. We don't have anything yet.
Here. Okay. So, if we don't have any questions that have entered the chat, I do not want to keep, I can keep speaking because this is, for me, it's extremely interesting. And I know that, this is where we're heading in the tech space, and anyone who's using this these tools on a daily basis, like I am, I mean, it's absolutely the future. So, start now, start getting your data properly structured, and start reviewing your tech stack, your internal infrastructure, and your process distribution, I'll say, as soon as possible, because I think everyone will find, right, that your data might be a little more fragmented than maybe you had thought. I think everyone will see, right, as we move forward in time, the benefit of having, cleansed, consolidated data, what the benefit is. So, all right.
Oh, we have one question.
Yes, there is absolutely a resource to review embedded WM and EWM. We also have, pre-sales consultants. If anyone wanted to speak with some of our consultants just about, differences between the WM and EWM product. Also, for anyone on Business One and by design, sorry, what we have done is we've actually mapped the full core of the Business One and by design system. For Business One, we've actually extended it through WMS. So you will see that what we can do for your business is map out what you're currently using in your Business One system and what you would be using in your S4 public cloud system. So that is inclusive of EWM. So if we find there's a process that you're currently executing in your current state that would drive you towards requiring EWM, we would be able to identify that for you. And for anyone who's been with, VistaVu or, previously Achieved Solutions, for a significant amount of time, we do have access to all of your modification specs as well. So we have the ability to review those and cross-reconcile functionality also. All right. Okay. So, if there's no other questions, I hope that everyone found this session to be valuable. I hope it gave you a good overview of the SAP landscape and where they're moving as an organization as it relates to AI. I hope it got gears turning around your current data structures. I hope it got you thinking about how you're currently executing your processes and maybe how you can start to consolidate those things in the future. And if there's anything that VistaVu can do to help you there, if there's any information that you're looking for on the back end of this session, do not hesitate to reach out to Christo or myself. I'm sure we can help you through that and provide any information. I know there was a lot of new terminology thrown at you through this session, so I encourage you, to take, the deck, review it, maybe research on your own as well. Just to start to educate yourselves on, the newer ERP and AI offerings that exist within the space. All right, Christo, any closing remarks?
You can switch to the next slide so everybody could see the marketing information, like our website.
Sorry about that.
Contact information. Yeah, thank you.
All right, there we go.
And
yeah. All right, thank you very much, everyone.